Yeah, so good morning, everyone. I hope my voice is loud and clear to everyone. Thank you so much. Very warm welcome. Before we begin, a quick housekeeping note. I would request all of you to keep your mics on mute because otherwise it will become very chaotic sometimes. And we will want your videos to be also off so that we concentrate on our speaker of the day. I think that's how we would want to do it. And whatever question that comes to your mind, I request that you put this in the chat box, and we will take up very soon. We'll try and take all the questions that are there. We'll make this interactive once the basic presentation is over. And um, before we start with Karan's presentation, just a small preface. This session is not about a conflict that might affect our money. It already has. The conflict has already affected a lot of our money. The Nifty is all down almost 10% now. The rupee is at its record lows. FIIs have pulled out almost 50,000 crore rupees in last 3 weeks. The war has started on February 28th, and today we are sitting on March 22nd. We are already 22 days in the war, and there is a lot of information that is available today. A lot of things are going around in the um TV. We all are watching TVs every day. We are almost everybody is glued. A lot of our time is going on that, and in fact, that's a too lot of information. But what is often missing is the interpretation. What are the dots? How do we connect the dots upon what is happening out there and what it actually means for us as an investor? In fact, last week we sent our clients a detailed research note on exactly this and what's happening and how it's going around and what the data is saying. A lot of these things were shared with you. But today we wanted to have someone who can decipher what's happening beyond finance. It's not just finance that we are interested in. And what we are going to talk about is about the war and how it started and what's happening and what we can expect in times to come. And before I hand over the place to Karan, let me take a moment to introduce our guest. And Karan Datta has spent over 25 years at the heart of India's financial services industry with leadership roles at Goldman Sachs, Franklin Templeton, Axis Mutual Funds, where he served as Chief Business Officer. But what makes him genuinely different from most of other financial professionals is that his thinking does not stop at balance sheet. Karan has spoken extensively on national security, the cost of terrorism in India, new age warfare, and global power dynamics. He's done talks, he's been doing a lot of talks and right he's done talks on new age wars, on bioweapons, of mass destruction. He sits at the intersection of He's a unique guy, as I told you, sits at the intersection of capital markets and geopolitics. And I can tell you, this is not a claim he makes lightly. He currently serves as independent director on the boards of Edelweiss Asset Management, Prudent Corporate Advisory, and Tamohara Investments. I have personally found his ability to connect geopolitical shifts with real investment implications to be rare and valuable, which is exactly why I wanted him speaking to my guest, my clients today. And Karan has been a dear friend for last almost 2 decades now. So thank you,
Yes.
Karan, for accepting the invitation. I know you are
Thank you.
very, very, very busy right now. Every day he's been either he's in a different city or different podcast. He's a lot of people are wanting his time. Thank you so much for giving us
Oh,
this
my
prime
pleasure.
time actually
Oh,
on a
my pleasure.
Sunday morning. Thank you so much. And Karan, now the floor is yours. And
Thank you.
if you want. Uh, you can start you
Sure.
can put the presentation also.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot, Amit, and thanks for the background and the introduction. That's very kind of you. And clearly, we've known each other for 2 decades, and over the 2 decades, I found interacting with you very enriching. Personally, I found it very enriching because I know how much effort you make clients के लिए and के client portfolios are sorted. And so I just, there are two, three things before I start. I want to make a point. Amit made this during the introduction that I have been part of the asset management industry for 2.5 decades. That is true. But what is also true that most people don't realize is that I don't invest my own money on my own. I mean, मैं खुद नहीं करता ये सब. I still have a financial advisor, a distributor, partner, like, and he's been with me for 25 long years. The point I'm making, Amit, is that this journey is of investing cannot be done alone, and so it's very vital that people like you help clients and help investors d- through this journey. So as a person who has been part of this industry, I can safely say that advisor बहुत जरूरी है. And I think in situations like these, it becomes even more critical. Second, I just wanted to share with all of you that, and clearly I'll be showing some slides and I'll set the agenda and then we can get into question answers. But I wanted to make one point, which is the bedrock of everything that is happening. That think of it this way कि अगर आपका देश सुरक्षित रहेगा, मतलब a safe and secure nation leads to a safe and secure economy, which in turn leads to a safe and secure capital markets. तो द सीक्वेंस इज पहले देश सुरक्षित रहना चाहिए, फिर एक उसकी वजह से इकोनॉमिक्स रिमेन secure and then capital market. You can never have a situation where your capital markets is strong, your economic growth is strong, but your nation is weak. वो सीक्वेंस नहीं चल सकता. So the reason why I wanted to start with that is it's you may want brilliant returns in your investments, but the foundation of that is a strong, secure, and very, very powerful nation. And वो दुनिया में अब दिख रहा है because अब तो actual युद्ध होने लग गए हैं. So it's now starting to show up. It's showing up, obviously showing up in the Middle East, and Middle East people think it's only one or two countries, but it's actually spread across 7 nations. You're seeing that happen in Russia and Ukraine. Again, Russia and Ukraine, it seems as if it's only two countries, but Ukraine is supported by multiple nations from NATO to Germany to UK to Americans. So this whole structure that if your nation is secure, everything will fall in place. I think that's the basic premise I want to start with. Now, what I'll do is I'll open some slides. I have some slides that I want to share with all of you. उसके बाद that's about 20 minutes का slides है. Then we'll open it up to Q&A. Amit, you can ask your questions. The audiences can ask the questions. But just give me 30 seconds. और एक बारी confirm कर दीजिएगा that you can see my slides.
Yeah, Karan, we can see the slide, just that you have, yeah, I think you have put it on the view mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah. It's there.
Perfect. Right. I mean, it's in the full screen, right? It's not in the, it's showing, the whole screen is showing.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I just want to start with, this is obviously India first. For us today, what matters is Bharat, apna desh. And then India first is something that in a environment where everything is shifting, if your nation is not doing well, you're in trouble anyway. But more importantly, what I wanted to share with all of you is, boss, geopolitics has now become part of your life. The very famous saying, and it's by Clausewitz, that you may not be interested in war, but war is definitely interested in you. And uh, so, it's like you may not be interested in geopolitics, but geopolitics is interested in you. Whoever is in this call, not on the call, whatever. So, okay, if you don't believe me, what I'm saying, think of it this way. Every dinner table conversation, every coffee conversation in the office, outside the office, invariably is turning down to geopolitics. वेदर किस अमेरिका ने क्या कर दिया, फिर कौन किसके साथ क्या कर रहा है, रेयर अर्थ, सेमीकंडक्टर्स, इनवेरिएबली इवन इन कॉर्पोरेट इंडिया conversations are shifting, boardroom में conversations are shifting towards geopolitics because it's shaping everyone's lives. अब ये जो करंट मिडल ईस्ट में युद्ध है, दे आर नॉट, इट्स नॉट एज इफ मिसाइल्स आर फ्लाइंग ओवर आवर हेड. But Amit, आप ही ने बोला कि we are glued to the TV, and then you're seeing that happen every day. Also, there is an Indian diaspora based there. It's a very big who knows, on this call, many people may have relatives based out there. So I just wanted to set the tone that at least in the 5 years, I've been speaking on this topic for about 10 to 12 years, but in the 5 years, I've noticed that this has become integrated with our lives. And let me show you how. ये तो सिर्फ 4 या 5 साल का लिस्ट है, इसमें 2 स्लाइड्स हैं. एवरी टाइम आई मेक अ प्रेजेंटेशन आई हैव टू अपडेट द स्लाइड. अब ये स्लाइड्स देमसेल्व्स आर 3 years ओल्ड, बट हर टाइम कुछ ना कुछ हो जाता है, सो आई हैव टू अपडेट द स्लाइड. सो पिछले 4 साल में ही आप देखिए क्या क्या हो चुका है. सो कोविड से ही स्टार्ट करते हैं. इट्स लाइक, एंड इन माई ओपिनियन दैट वाज अ बायो वेपन. एंड अगेन आई डोंट वांट टू गेट इनटू डिटेल्स, बट उसमें फिर बहुत टाइम चला जाएगा. बट कोविड से ही देखिए ना हाउ इट स्टार्टेड. व्हेन वी गॉट इनटू द कोविड स्ट्रक्चर, it's exactly what is happening right now. Flights shut, tourists not going back home. No one is traveling. It's almost we are heading. I mean, it almost looks like a COVID situation right now. If you look at it, certainly in the Middle East, it looks like COVID because my friend is based there and he's saying there's an 80% drop in expats. Everyone has gone home. And all of you on this call will remember in COVID, we got injections like 2, 3 times, and then there was this manufacturing of, well, there was a shortage of all that gas, oxygen containers. फिर वो लेकर आए. India started making the vaccine for 1.4 billion people. We had to create the vaccine amongst the very few nations that created. So, okay, let's come to the next. This in 2019, there was these huge protests by students. So, student protests लगता है लोगों को कि सिर्फ बांग्लादेश, नेपाल, ऐसे देशों में होते हैं, बट यहाँ पे हुए थे. 2.5 लाख स्टूडेंट रोड पे आ गए बिकॉज दे वांटेड चाइना. दे डिडंट वांट चाइना टू स्टार्ट रनिंग हांगकांग. 2.5 से 3 लाख स्टूडेंट रोड्स पे आ गए हांगकांग में. कैन यू इमेजिन द मोस्ट ओपन इकोनॉमी इन द वर्ल्ड वेयर पीपल ट्रैवल लाइक क्रेजी. वहां पे क्लैम्प डाउन हो गया. द चाइनीज रियली केम हार्ड, क्लैम्प डाउन ऑन द स्टूडेंट्स, एंड विद इन वीक्स एवरीथिंग डिसअपियर्ड. कोई नामो निशान नहीं प्रोटेस्ट का, कुछ नहीं, शट डाउन. एंड आज की डेट है कि आज अगर आप, इफ यू गो टू हांगकांग टुडे, इट ऑलमोस्ट रिजेम, आई मीन इट फील्स एज इफ यू गोइंग इनटू चाइना. Not literally, but you don't feel the old. It's not like going back into the old Hong Kong where it used to be like, oh, you're going into, you partly going into UK or something. वो दिन खत्म हो गए. चाइना का ही आप डेट ट्रैप देख लो. इन आर रीजन सबको देव गिवन लोन. श्रीलंका को लोन दे दिया, नेपाल को दे दिया, सो मेनी अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज को देव गिवन लोन. एंड व्हाट डू दे डू? अब इनको पता है कि दीज पुअर नेशंस कैन नॉट रिटर्न द लोन, सो ये क्या करते हैं, टिपिकल लोन शार्क की तरह बिहेव करते हैं. तुमने लोन, यू कैन नॉट पे द लोन, नो प्रॉब्लम, आई टेक योर लैंड. Exactly what they did with Sri Lanka. They took the Hambantota port. And so India had to step in to pay the loan back to China so that Hambantota port can be freed from Sri Lanka. Same thing, exact same thing in Nepal. So what they do is they go into these nations and they kind of give loans for long-term projects of, so Belt and Road Initiative or economic corridors. We'll build bridge, we'll build dam, we'll create your infrastructure. And none of these documents are ever available to the public. This is one thing, I mean, it's an open challenge. None of these documents, no one knows what the agreements are. And when you cannot pay the loans, they just take the land away. It's happened across in Africa as well. As far as India is concerned, there was this. We ended up with a literally we fought with the Chinese in Galwan. So after 62, after 1962, there's not been a single incidence of war with China. वो भी हो गया पिछले 4 साल में. So we lost 20 soldiers in Galwan. Everyone on this call, I'm sure everyone remembers Galwan and that we lost 20 soldiers. I'm sure there's a movie also being made on it. And like the most, and about 110 Chinese soldiers died. Now there's enough intelligence to suggest the Americans have studied this, the Russians have studied this. So on that night in Galwan, not a single bullet was fired, not a single missile, no drone, nothing. Only bare hands, rocks, mace, barbed wire. So मतलब आप ऐसे सोच लीजिए जैसे 500 साल पहले जैसे युद्ध होता होगा ना, तलवार भी नहीं थी. They literally fought with boulders and hands because there's a law between China, there's a agreement between China and India that you cannot carry firearms at the patrol. So when you go there and you end up in a conflict, at least you don't start shooting. So shooting nahi hui, but look at the intensity of a 4 hour fight where roughly 130 people died. So जो 62 से नहीं हुआ वो भी हो गया अपने साथ. फिर बालाकोट एयर स्ट्राइक्स. सो दिस इज Balakot happened as a response to Pulwama. India hit Balakot. There were surgical strikes. I mean, India till up until then there weren't surgical strikes, and that kind of started the whole process of surgical strikes. We hit Balakot, and then the next day, Abhinandan took down an F-16. He himself got shot. Then finally, he had to, he was got back at the border. Sabko yaad hoga wo photo where Abhinandan is coming back. Okay, so for 20 years, the Americans were in Afghanistan, 20 long years. And then one fine day, they just walk off. Literally, one fine day, they walk off. And who comes in? The Taliban. And then the Indian planners go dizzy and the media goes completely crazy कि अरे बाप रे अभी एक तो पाकिस्तान को हैंडल करना है अब तालिबान भी हमारे सर पे आ गया है. So the narrative at that time was now Taliban will create chaos for India. Okay. And just see what's happening right now. From chaos for India, and the Taliban is actually fighting a war with Pakistan right on our. I mean, you can see that happening every day. The Afghanistan, Pakistan, there's a war going on. They are each hitting each other. And as a result, we really don't know who's running Pakistan, like who's in control. Imran Khan, the elected democratic leader, he's in jail. He was the most anti-India guy. He's in jail. The ISI chief who actually got Taliban back, who was sipping tea with them, he's in jail. Shahbaz Sharif has come into power, God knows through what kind of coalition. And so typically Taliban has come back and we don't know who runs Pakistan. Let me go again. And all of this, like I said, has happened in the last 4 to 5 years. So there are these massive cyber attacks that keep taking place in Australia, India, and come to India. India may power grid, like power grid came under a cyber attack. There are there are multiple thousands of attacks every day on NSC. And during Operation Sindoor, that went into 10,000 plus attacks per day. So, everyone on this call, and Amit, you would specifically understand this, that imagine if there's a serious like breach on NSC or BSC, what that could do to capital markets. Like even if it's down for 3 hours, it'll create it'll create havoc and mayhem for investors. But this is a constant thing, and India is also dealing with it. In Europe, Spain went without power for one full day when this is about 6 months ago. And when they investigated कि ये उड़ कैसे गए, power कैसे उड़ गई, they realized they came under a cyber attack. So, okay, trade war. Everyone, before this event happened 20 days ago, the only conversation everyone was having was trade war. कि अब कितना सैंक्शन होगा, अब कितना परसेंटेज होगा. नाउ इंडिया विल बी 150%, चाइना विल बी 50. I mean, the only concentration everyone had was trade war. उसमें भी देखिए how the word war has come in. I haven't put it. It's called trade wars. So that was going on. ताइवान का अलग ही है गेम. वो अलग ही कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जोन है. इनफैक्ट माई द पीस आई स्पीक मैक्सिमम ऑन is on that conflict zone, which is Taiwan finally and China. China's stated objective is in 2030 they want Taiwan, which is like 4 years from now. And so that's a separate वो अलग ही गेम चल रहा है. And there are reasons for it why they want Taiwan. They don't want Taiwan. कोई love loss नहीं है ऐसा. They want TSMC. TSMC is the largest semiconductor manufacturer. It's Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company is the largest semiconductor manufacturer in the world. 70% of all semiconductors are made by TSMC. तो बहुत ही complex process है semiconductor का, but उसका जो the main guard is actually TSMC. On that point, I just wanted to make another observation to just show you how things can blow out of proportion. TSMC is the largest semiconductor manufacturer in the world. Amit, you'll be surprised to know, and this I just realized some days ago, that TSMC का जो market cap है अब, it's bigger than Taiwan's GDP. ये दुनिया में अनहर्ड है कि किसी एक कंपनी का मार्केट कैप इतना बड़ा हो जाए. सो आप सोच सकते हो हाउ द मनी इज ऑल्सो फ्लोइंग. सो पार्टली यू सेड ना FIIs आर टेकिंग मनी आउट. इट्स बिकॉज दे फंडिंग AI, दे फंडिंग सेमीकंडक्टर्स. सो वो भी एक अलग ही दैट्स अनदर वर्ल्ड ऑल टुगेदर. सो ओके, एटलीस्ट लड़ाइयाँ तो नहीं हो रही थी, तो वो भी हो गया. So it's I think we're now in the third year of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. People don't realize how critical this conflict is because we don't tend to recognize that Ukraine is the largest supplier of grains and wheat to the world. उसे उसे granary to the world कहते हैं. एंड यूक्रेन की स्पेशलिटी इज वीट, एंड सो अभी वीट जाना बंद हो रहा है धीरे धीरे बिकॉज शिप्स नहीं जा पा रहे हैं, जस्ट लाइक ऑयल नहीं जा पा रहा है, food production was also halted. So inflation went up, and I'll speak about inflation in a couple of slides. But this crisis is going on. This is the fourth year, and I don't think this crisis will stop until Russia gets exactly what it wants. ये नहीं रुकने वाला. And I think Russia is getting closer to what they want. So in that sense, it's getting closer to end. But Russia will win this. Will win this conflict, even though Ukraine is supported by multiple countries. ओके, हाँ, उस सब में फिर ड्यूरिंग द यू नो देयर वाज दिस ड्यूरिंग द इलेक्शंस there was an assassination attempt on Trump. Now, who did it? Whether it's the Iranians, Ukrainians, that's just way too. That's not in my assessment. I mean, I am not qualified enough to speak about it. But what I can tell you for sure is that that 2 millimeter save makes Trump genuinely believe. He thinks that now it is his birthright, that he is now gifted by God, special life मिली है to sort America's problems out. And this may sound very bizarre, but he actually thinks of himself that he kind of saved him so that he can help America. So his outlook, so you look at his decisions from that perspective, that he's here to sort America, solve their problems, create this new make America great again. So that assassination, that 2 millimeter save, whether it was the Iranians who hit him or the Ukrainians, is actually, turned things like on its head. And then closer home, Bangladesh mein crisis. Sheikh Hasina was in power for 10, 12, 15 years, very close to India. Well, she shut down many jihadists, many Islamic terror networks. They have very, very close relationship with India. वो सब उड़ गया एक साल के अंदर, पिछले 6-8 महीने में सब, of course अब reverse हो रहा है. But then overnight, student protest. So remember my this previous slide where I spoke about Hong Kong students. Same thing, same playbook. Student protest. कहते हैं स्टूडेंट प्रोटेस्ट, आते हैं प्रोफेशनल प्रोटेस्टर्स ही आते हैं. बट कि इसमें क्या हुआ, एज इज इन मोस्ट प्रोटेस्ट, व्हाट हैपेंस इज व्हेन इट बिकम्स टू बिग एंड टू वायलेंट, the police end up shooting or someone ends up shooting at them. Same thing happened in Ukraine. There was a protest and the previous prime president shot at the protesters. About 150 protesters died, and that's how the whole shift happened and Zelensky came into power. Exactly what happened in Bangladesh. She shot at the protest. I mean, whether she shot, the army shot, sniper shot. Now there's some news coming that there were snipers, professional snipers, who shot at the 250 log mar gaye. She had to run away. She had to come to India because the whole regime, she was not in power because they took shots. I mean, when you have protesters who die, story is over. And then closer home, there was Nepal. Nepal has 9 prime ministers in 10 years. The only other country that has so many prime ministers in 10 years is United Kingdom. So Nepal and UK have this unique distinction of having 8 to 9 prime ministers in 10, 12 years. एंड देन अपना युद्ध वुद्ध कुछ हुआ नहीं था, वो भी हो गया सिंदूर पोस्ट पहलगाम. सो पुलवामा resulted in Balakot and Pahalgam resulted in Op Sindhur. And then Sindhur finished, and then in 2023, 7th October 2023, Hamas went and attacked Israel and they killed 1,500 Israelis. In 2023, when that happened, that was October. In November 2023, I came out with a note. I think Amit, I shared it with you also recently. And I wrote in that note that this is going to be a fight to the finish. There can only be one winner left. Either Iran or Israel will survive. Both cannot survive. This is a fight to the finish because what happened on 7th October 2023, Israel will never ever let it go. एंड उस वक्त मैंने ये लिख दिया था दैट एपिक वॉर गेम्स आर कमिंग अप एंड मिडल ईस्ट विल हैव टू फेस दिस बिकॉज इसका कोई जवाब नहीं है. दिस इज लिटरली देयर हैज टू बी अ विनर एंड अ लूजर. सो ये सब 4 साल के अंदर हुआ और ये लिस्ट बढ़ती जाती है. एंड व्हाट इज दिस, so what is war? Like, I think Amit, you also alluded when I started, just at your point, that formats of war ही बदल गए हैं. You have to think of मिसाइल, ड्रोन्स, बुलेट्स, एयरक्राफ्ट, वो एब्सोल्युटली एंड में आता है व्हेन एवरी अदर ऑप्शन इज ओवर. रिमेंबर, इवन द इजराइल ईरान वॉर has come after 50 years of terrorism that that Iranians or Hezbollah or Hamas must have been doing on Israel. And Operation Sindoor has also come after 45 years of terrorism that Pakistan has been doing on India. वो लास्ट में जब कुछ नहीं बचता, then that is the only option. But uske beech mein there are so many formats. Cyber war I spoke about. And when I show you all the dabbas, all of this that I'm speaking about, remember India is in the middle of every one of them. ऐसा नहीं है कि India is outside of any one of them. And cyber to we rare earth. Now look at rare earth. It's like the most important, and rare earth is not rare. It's very, very abundantly available. It's uski processing is rare because 90% processing is in China. So they control the supply chain for rare earth. And rare earth कहाँ यूज होता है? EV, battery, to make weapons, to make aircrafts. वो सब में rare earth यूज होता है. So rare earth में क्या हुआ? The Americans decided not to give chips, semiconductors, very high-end semiconductors. They decided कि हम चाइना को ये chips नहीं देंगे because वो हमसे आगे चले जाएंगे in AI or in advanced technology. So what did China do? They said, ठीक है, if you don't give us chips, we won't give you rare earth. And so this conflict is now becoming about weaponizing things that you own. It's a brilliant article that I read that actually now factories जो होती है ना, actual factory जहाँ पे माल material बनता है, that will become the future. So from financial assets, it's actually becoming physical assets are going to become very, very important because who controls rare earth? Today China controls. Who controls semiconductors? America. And that is why even in India, there's this huge shift to start making semiconductors, to have your own rare earth processing, etc. etc. Water wars तो बस जैसे ही पहलगाम का इवेंट हुआ, I mean the terror attack in Pahalgam, what did India say? That after 65 years we said we will stop Indus Water Treaty. No more water sharing. We've gone to the extent of saying that अब हम करना ही नहीं है sharing. And ये भी इतना अजीब सा ये Indus Water Treaty. I mean, Indus Water, it's the most lopsided treaty ever in the history of making treaties. And just to explain to everyone why this is important, they should know this. When the treaty was signed between India and Pakistan, there's something known as an upper riparian nation, and then there's lower riparian. Upper riparian का मतलब पानी का origination कहाँ से होता है? That country has the full control of the water. In this case, India is the upper riparian and Pakistan is the lower riparian. But Indus Water Treaty made, what's the deal? That 83% water of Indus and emerging rivers, Ravi, Bias, etc., will flow into Pakistan. 83%, which should be at least 80% in fish, and only 17% will come to India. And the beauty is, we have not even taken the 17. सो व्हाट इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी इज सेइंग, जो तुमने एग्रीमेंट में लिखा था हमको सिर्फ वही चाहिए, हमको 17% चाहिए. बाय द वे, टेकिंग दैट 17 itself will make sure that Pakistan has agricultural issues. And so I'm just saying, keep an eye out on what happens on water wars. On the other side, China will also create these big mega dams on the Brahmaputra and try to create problems for us. So India is in the middle of the water wars. इकोनॉमिक एंड ट्रेड वॉर्स तो आप देख ही रहे हो, रोज की बात है. सैंक्शन, नो सैंक्शन, जापान पे सैंक्शन, इंडिया पे सैंक्शन, 50% सैंक्शन. द मार्केट्स हैव ऑब्वियसली taken a beating because of that, because we don't know. I mean, it's an uncertain environment. And remember one thing, this is very important, that the first country to start a conversation with America on tariffs, and I can prove that the first country to have started conversation was India. India was almost at the verge of signing, but something happened. And that something is Operation Sindhur. Well, as soon as Sindhur happened, the day one point was Trump said, "We are least interested in your war." This is stated. This I'm not blabbering. This he said. This is we are out of this. We have no idea. I mean, you do what you have to. On the third day, all hell broke loose. And the Americans entered this arena and said, immediately stop it. What happened between the first day and the third day? That a country that was all set to sign the trade deal with America, and on the day one they had no interest in the war, and on third day they stepped in heavily. Not just stepped in, they sanctioned India at 150% or like 100% tariff. That's a sanction because you cannot do business with. What happened in during Sindhur, maybe I'll open it up when we speak about it in question and answers. But something did happen and the whole American system tilted. Okay, biological wars. I spoke about it as far as COVID is concerned, etc. Semiconductors. I mean, look, this is the most important battle. Who wins the semiconductor AI battle? Because this means, so just to give everyone an idea, semiconductors, matlab, the chips are now of a size called 3nm. They're the most sophisticated manufacturing process in the world. 3nm is smaller than coronavirus. So man is making material which is smaller than coronavirus. So आप सोच सकते हो उसकी मतलब उसकी जो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कैपेबिलिटी है वो इतनी advanced hai that nothing beats semiconductor manufacturing. And there are so many in the supply chain, there are so many people involved. TSMC is just one of them. There's obviously there's Nvidia, there's a Netherlands company, SMC, etc., etc. So the whole mosaic is so beautiful that it's like the most complex process. Narrative and psychological operations, and so people don't realize this again that narrative war is the biggest war. So when Sindhur was going on, and just post Sindhu in that 3 days, what is the narrative that everyone was left with? That India lost 3 Rafales, India lost 4 Rafales, India के 6 जहाज उड़ गए, ये उड़ गया, वो उड़ गया, and everyone lost sight of the fact that no one asked the question कि हमने पाकिस्तान में क्या किया? That this war had to end in 3 days. Can you imagine? You have the Americans and the Israelis bombing Iran for 22 days. They've hit 8,000 targets. The entire leadership has vanished. And the war is obviously it's coming down, but it's not ended. What did India do that in 3 days they had to they had to call for ceasefire? That no one asks. But the question everyone asked at that time was, oh, yeah, yeah, तुम्हारे 6 गिर गए, 4 गिर गए. And the Americans may have lost maybe 15 aircrafts by now. But no one is asking that question, कि भाई Americans के कितने aircraft गिर गए? It's a irrelevant question. But this is how psychological operations and narrative wars are built. $18 billion per annum is spent on how you and me think. छोटा सा ही सेंटेंस है, 4 रफाइल गिर गए, 4 ही वर्ड है उसमें, बट उसको यू नो बनाने में कितना एफर्ट जाता है. एंड देन फाइनली यू कम टू काइनेटिक वॉर. फाइनली ये सारे जब खत्म हो जाते हैं, देन यू कम टू मिलिट्री कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. एंड war is finally, what is war? War is achievement of political objectives. And so in every war you have to have your objectives, political objectives, very clear. In Sundhur we were very clear that we only want to hit terror targets. In Epic Fury and Roaring Lion, they're very clear. They want to finish off the entire missile capability, nuclear capability. So every war has a certain objective. But you reach there after every of these things has, finished. So what is all this doing to the world? Like, अगर ये सब चल रहा है, so is everything like हो क्या रहा है? And so there's this regularity of black swans. Black swans पहले होता था ना, ब्लैक स्वॉन इज वंस इन अ वाइल ऐसा दिख जाता है, बट यहाँ तो रेगुलर ब्लैक होता जा रहा है एज अ सीक्वेंस वन आफ्टर द अदर. So it's, and these are slides I have not made yesterday or today. These have been made over the last 3 years. So please remember, when I wrote increase in commodity prices, inflation, it's already played out. Like, it's already there. There's an increase in commodity prices. You can see that. I mean, you saw that happening when gold and silver went berserk, all commodity prices, and this gold and silver just all rare earth, all prices that are input value, copper, that's gone up. There's inflation across the world. Like, I mean, none of the European countries, Americans don't know what inflation means. This generation doesn't know for 50 years there's been no inflation in America. उनको पता ही नहीं कि दाम बढ़ते बढ़ते भी हैं. But today, the same coffee which was $2 is worth $8. There's been a disruption in supply chains. Like, people are not Like in COVID, you could not get a laptop because semiconductor chip shortage. And that time I had spoken about chip shortage. But anyway, disruption in supply chains is happening. But the piece that is the most important is point number four. There's a complete breakdown in trust. कोई किसी को भरोसा ही नहीं है किसी के ऊपर. अब, and this is where I think there's a role for India to play. I genuinely believe, and by the way, मैं अपना risk factor देना भूल गया. Sorry about that. So we're discussing geopolitics. So geopolitics में ना दो words हैं, geography and politics. So invariably अगर मैं गलती से politics के बारे में बात कर दूं तो please excuse me, मेरा intention not to talk is politics, but अब word ही में politics है, so I can't help it. Is breakdown and trust factor में I think there's a role India has can play. I mean, if you look at it, we are speaking to the Iranians and we are very close to the Israelis. We speak, I mean, we're very close to the Russians and we speak regularly to the Americans. So up complete ends of the pole पे complete ends of the pole में कौन बीच में कौन है? Like if someone has to step in and say, okay, not just for this war, but for the future, I think India has a probably India has a huge role to play, and I think the external affairs team, that whole setup has done some remarkable work in kind of keeping this structure going. And then oil politics. Uh, exactly that has played out. Oil politics, like where and what, who owns the oil, how does the oil flow? That's come into fore. And my last point was Middle East se jo shift hai na, it'll start coming to the east. What I meant is, in this I didn't some time ago, that the Middle East will start looking fractured. I don't mean fractured as in broken. What I meant is people will start looking at Asia as destination of capital. And that's how capital might start flowing for manufacturing, for production to Asia. For so something like the gift city in 7 years, 8 years might start becoming a competitor to many other places that are so strong. That's why I think from Middle East to East is a possible shift. Now, in all of this, this sounds really terrible, जो भी मैंने लिखा है. But I must make one point very, very clear. It's for the first time in 10 years, and I say this with great responsibility, that I am actually becoming extremely positive on the world. I think that the world is fast or approaching its most peaceful era. And there's a reason why I say that. So, ये सब, I mean, also you have to see that ये सब हो चुका है. So my job is also to kind of, through searchlights and through the fog, see आगे होने क्या वाला है. And on that slide, I just wanted to make this point. I do think that the world's entering its most peaceful era, and that could mean a lot of prosperity. That could also mean good, that whole space where the nation is secure and the capital markets end up becoming a huge story. There's a reason why I say that. But before we get to why I say that I'm getting more positive, we have to go through one last section, and then we'll open it up to. And yeah, so there's just very one quick one slide I have on Sindhu. People don't tend to realize this is the map of Pakistan, and all the can you all see the yellow dots? ये जैसे भुलारी है, ये सुकूर है, ये जकोगाबाद है. ये सारे जो येलो डॉट है ना अमित, ये सारे के सारे पाकिस्तान के मिलिट्री इंस्टॉलेशन हैं. और जो रेड है ना, जैसे भावलपुर है, मुरीद के, ये आपको ये रेड दिख रहा है, ये मुरीद के चाकामरू, भिम्बर, ये सारे टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के टारगेट थे. So what I want to tell everyone is, on the first night when India's at 110, when the aircrafts went in, they only went in with there was a stated objective, only one objective, कि जितने भी red dots हैं, there were 9 of them. ये 9 हमको destroy करने हैं, that is our military objective, and that's it. They did not even make an attempt to destroy the radars and what is known as air defense missile. They didn't do that. When you go into enemy territory, the idea is to destroy the radars first so that you don't get caught. But there was no such attempt. They went straight in, probably flew closer to the borders, hit the terror installation, and came back and called the DGMO of Pakistan and said, "We have come in, hit the 9 locations, and for us the war is over." Every word I'm saying is official military, the Indian Army of spokesperson's official statement. For us, the war was over in 20 minutes. Obviously, Pakistan wouldn't have stopped, and so then came escalation. Next day, they sent a strike package. Then we sent a. By the third day, between 12 on the last day, between 12 to 3 p.m. 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. That's afternoon. We hit from Bhulari in Karachi this yellow box, this yellow dot. All of these yellows, all of them, up until Skardu, which is in J&K, पाकिस्तान ऑक्यूपाइड कश्मीर. ये जो है ना, ये 1500 किलोमीटर का हिट है and 400 kilometers deep. The deepest point is Jakokabad. So I want people to realize that India on hit Pakistan 1500 kilometers wide, 400 kilometers deep, and did not allow a single drone to come and hit in Indian territory. 1100-1200 मारे थे in 1 hour, 98% interception rate. जो अभी आप देख रहे हैं in every day you seeing it play out on TV in the Middle East, we had a 98% interception rate with the Indian made air defense system called Akash Tir. Is one of the most fascinating stories of this war. How India's air defense was at its peak, and when we had to hit them, that's why on the third day they called for a ceasefire. So, why is all this happening? I'll just kind of cover that. What's the root cause? I mean, ये दुनिया में हो क्या है? ये तो दुनिया का एंड अपने देश का नंबर वन सिक्योरिटी इशू इज टेररिज्म. लोग समझ नहीं रहे हैं कि ये कितना बड़ा है. मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ ये सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है दुनिया का. एंड सो look at it from, I'll show you from an India point of view, then you can understand how an Israeli would feel about it. Think of it in India that the number one case is terrorism. So people don't believe me when I try and tell them that ये सबसे बड़ा problem है. And I ask this question very often. अमित, मैं हर बार यही पूछता हूँ, are you a victim of terrorism? And most times people say, no, we're not victims of terrorism. My point is, you don't need to take a bullet. You don't need to be in that zone to be a victim of terrorism. Even though my friends have actually been victims also, real victims. But every person on this call is a direct victim of terrorism. I'll prove it to you how. So Moody's did a research. अब मेरे को तो आप believe करोगे नहीं. So I have to depend on Moody's or some external research. So this research was about to find out what are the cost of terrorism. And when Moody's did this research, they took a 20-year period to understand cost of terrorism. And so 1993 say 2013. This is a 20-year period. I think 93. So yeah, so they did this for yeah, correct, year across till 2013. So 93 to 2013. And they realized that India faced 6,024 attacks. When people don't know what that means, that one terror attack a day. आपके देश में 2014 तक और 2013 तक एंड 93 में पंजाब टेररिज्म इन्वॉल्व नहीं है. वो 80s का प्रॉब्लम था. तो दिस इज पीक ऑफ कश्मीर एंड देन दिल्ली एंड बॉम्बे एंड एवरी सिटी. people on this call will understand what I'm saying. मैं अभी आता हूँ उस पॉइंट पे. पर 6024 टेरर अटैक हुए वन अ डे. So tell me one thing, if you believe that you are a safe nation, can you allow one terror attack a day on your soil? And इसमें naxalism and Maoism तो है ही नहीं, pure terrorism. Like a guy comes and breaks your gamla one day, चलो ठीक है, गलती हो गई. Then takes your light away, then breaks your gate, then comes and breaks your shisha, then finally comes into the house, he hits someone. Every day he does something and you are unable to do anything. For 20 years you'll allow it to happen. And that's what's the issue out here. And then Moody's realized that one large terror attack takes away 0.5% GDP and 2% investment growth in the year of the attack. Let me re-say that. It takes away 1%, half a percent GDP, 2% investment growth in the year of the attack. And we've had one terror attack a day. So I'm saying हर साल एक large terror attack तो हुआ ही होगा. And if you don't believe me, I mean, I have photographs after photographs. There's Kanishka, Mumbai, hijacking, Bombay, 26/11. And for everyone on this call, everyone will remember all those, क्या नाम था यार, ट्रांजिस्टर बॉम्ब इन दिल्ली गोइंग ऑफ. कभी वो अपना कौन सा मार्केट है यार, दिस दैट
Sarojini Nagar.
सरोजनी. फिर जज के यहाँ पे मैंने. एंड बाय द वे ये अभी अपना दिल्ली रेड फोर्ट पे भी हो गया, जो जो 12 साल में पहली बार हुआ है. बिकॉज इन द लास्ट 12 years देयर ओनली बीन टेरर अटैक्स इन साउथ कश्मीर के 100 किलोमीटर्स के रेडियस में. द फर्स्ट टेरर. एंड अमित उसमें भी ना 3,000 kilograms ऑफ एक्सप्लोजिव्स वॉज कॉट. ये एक कार रह गई. That blew up. I'm saying there's like it is we were born as if we were born to get terrorized. As if it was written कि बस ये तो तुम्हारा business model है. Now that has shifted. And that is why I started by saying that it's not about the markets. पहले देश अगर सुरक्षित होगा तो सब कुछ सुरक्षित होगा. This is shifted. And I think there's so much happening. There's just lots happening as far as making the nation secure. But the number one thing is you have to get national security in order. That's how you will prosper. नहीं तो कौन आएगा आपके देश में निवेश करने? ये 12 साल में बिकॉज टेरर अटैक्स नहीं हुए हैं तो सब कुछ हो रहा है. मेक इन इंडिया, मैन्युफैक्चर हियर, ऑल कैपिटल मार्केट्स ऑल टाइम हाई. there's enthusiasm, ये वो फलान ढमकान, बिकॉज टेरर अटैक भी तो नहीं हुआ ना. So now what has happened is investor confidence तभी आएगा. Imagine if you're a terror infested nation, will anyone come and put a plant? No one will come. Where will they go? They'll go to China. And so the point I just want to end with is that India's planners, and I say that with planners, this is not about politicians, it's about planners. They've now decided, the politicians and the planners have decided that a terrorist attack on India will be considered an act of war. तो जो रिस्पॉन्स आएगा वो एक्ट ऑफ वॉर आएगा, एज अ स्टेट रिस्पॉन्स आएगा. इट वोंट बी डॉसियर एक्सचेंज, कड़ी निंदा. नो, इट विल बी स्टेट रिस्पॉन्स. एंड इंडिया विल नॉट टॉलरेट न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल. वो दिन भी खत्म. सो जो जो टेरर का जो यूनिट है, मान लो तहरीक, मतलब मान लो जैश ए मोहम्मद. सो जैश ए मोहम्मद और आईएसआई में इंडिया विल मेक नो डिस्टिंक्शन. So from next time onwards, ISI headquarters is as much a legitimate target as much as it is Jaish-e-Mohammed's, let's say, Murid K. And offensive defense is India's new security doctrine. So I just wanted to end this by saying that that is why I say that the world is entering into a massive era of peace and prosperity, because nations have said, Abbas, exactly what Israel has said, Abbas. अब जो भी होगा, it will be an act of war. So when 1,200 Hamas soldiers came in and killed 1,500 civilians, Israel said it's an act of war. When 26 people died in Pahalgam, India said it's an act of war. When you turn it around and you said it's an act of war, can you imagine what it means for the other side? The costs escalate beyond measure. Iran almost ceases to exist in its original structure. खत्म ही हो गया. हिजबुल्ला खत्म, हमास खत्म, सीरिया खत्म, हूतीस खत्म. ईरान की दुर्दशा इतनी है कि 30 साल पिछड़ गया है. और वो 3 दिन में पाकिस्तान की इतनी हालत खराब हुई होगी that they had to ask for ceasefire. So the costs have gone up dramatically, which is why I feel that if terrorism comes down, it means more manufacturing, more investment, more inflow, not outflow. And hence, what I do think, what it means is that while national security matters, but in booming markets is where we make maximum mistakes. I think we're reaching a situation where valuations are getting more reasonable. I think look for resilient growth, seek advice, and true diversification is just don't focus on equity. There's just so much happening in this whole space in between multi assets. And Amit is the best guy to talk about it. But there that's where advisors come in, and he was telling me that he created an STP in 2021. No one would have thought of doing a systematic transfer plan in 2021 because bull market में कौन STP करेगा. बट उस STP का एडवांटेज आज दिख रहा होगा सबको. So I'm just saying that focus on valuations, keep your line of thinking on managing risk, because risks have gone up in the world. And now managing risks and managing assets are two different things. We are headed into a brilliant phase. I do think India will be a wealth creator. Do the right things. You're more than welcome to follow me on any of these programs, and I'm happy to speak again. But I'll stop here for a while and we'll open it up to Q&A. Sorry, I've taken more time. मैं थोड़ा ज़्यादा ही बह गया उस भावना में.
Many perfect, Karan. Thank you so much for this. This was an extremely insightful. And honestly, I think a lot of us are going to be processing parts of what you just said. A lot of things we have been thinking, we have been talking about it in our dinner table and coffee tables and all. But the way you explained and some of the points that came out of that were kind of intriguing, and they were like comfortable and uncomfortable के
Yeah,
zone
very
में.
uncomfortable as well.
Yes, yes, and part of that were into that zone. Let me pick up a few, threads from here, and I request anybody who's got questions, they may raise hand or they may put it in the chat. So we'll ask you to, share your question here. Till that time, I have few questions that I want to ask you. Uh, One straight question, which I think is there in everybody's mind, is what do you think of the geopolitics from here on? You actually said by landing that you see positives going on there. You also said that we're kind of at the end of a lot of these things. But how do you see where we are? Because just a statement by saying we are at the end, I think is not something which
Yeah,
we are able to absorb as of now. How
yeah,
you think? Because you're the one person, and as rightly said by you, that 3 years back when that Israel Hamas thing happened, you actually wrote that paper, and I saw that paper and wherein you wrote what is happening today. So,
right.
if you can give your insights on how do you think where we are? Is it really the fag end or is it the tail? Or how far do you think it's going to go?
So, no, so I mean, the way to look at all of this is that, see, what happens is when an event occurs, then it's like we are in the middle of that massive event after it has hit us. It's like you're in the middle of the hurricane. So the only thing you can see is destruction all around you. But that hurricane will finally go away. Is there another one coming, or are we now seeing blue skies and sunlight? I am seeing there's a technical reason why I'm saying that this hurricane is going. This is the only way to reach blue skies and sunlight. This hurricane has to come, and there's
Okay.
nothing wrong about this hurricane. ये करना ही पड़ेगा. You and me and everyone on this call and everyone, we have to go through this pain of the war. 50 साल का बिजनेस मॉडल है अमित जो अभी डिस्ट्रॉय हो रहा है. आप सबने वो पिक्चर देखी होगी म्यूनिक, वहां पे 12 एथलीट्स थे, उनको मार दिया. मतलब अगर मैं 9/11, स्पेन में ट्रेन बॉम्बिंग, लंदन में बस बॉम्बिंग, इंडिया की तो मतलब आई मीन इंडिया का तो मैं स्टार्ट देयर इज नॉट अ सिंगल सिटी इन दिस कंट्री दैट इज नॉट कम अंडर एन अटैक. Not a single city. Now you have to end that business model. Can you allow that for the next 50 years is my question. Can that business
Of
model?
course.
Of
Of
course
course,
not.
that cannot
Someone
be.
has to call it out. So this government has called it out in Operation Sindoor. That government has called it out in Epic Fury. तो उसका pain तो झेलना ही पड़ेगा. So when I look on the other side, what do I see? What I see is that the costs go up so high, that the costs of this is so high on the other side to the perpetrator of the crime, that they will think 100 times before doing this again. पहले तो कोई
What
cost
India
नहीं
is
होगा.
doing to Pakistan right now,
And what is happening to, like,
Iran.
see what has happened to Gaza. That poor city doesn't exist. Dust हो गया है. So, I'm just saying that through this, what does it mean? When you go through this and you see on the other side, no more terror attacks. Let's come to a situation that there's a deep reduction in terror attacks. What does that mean? It can only mean a peaceful world, no? It can only mean that people are now saying कि ideological differences tend to come down, peaceful world, लोग निवेश करेंगे, infrastructure grow होगा, cross cross investments होगी, people won't be afraid. मैं आपको एक चैलेंज के साथ, just to hit the point hard, let me explain why I'm so bullish from here onwards. And this is not going to happen overnight, अमित। ये ना तीन से, जैसे मैंने 23 में लिखा था कि ये वॉर होगी, अब when you turn back in 26 or 29 or 30, when you look at this podcast or whatever, you'll that's when this will play out in, let's say, 2 years, 3 years, when the reality will dawn. Think of this, Amit. You're a brilliant financial planner. Like, that's what you do. Now I have a question for you. One of your clients out here has 100 crore project. Okay, and he comes to you कि बॉस मेरे पास 100 करोड़ का project है, and I want to start a manufacturing plant for a motorcycle supply. Okay, now he comes to you, Amit, saying that मेरे पास दो ऑप्शन है। गुड़गांव में लगा सकता हूँ प्लांट, बहुत ही अच्छी जगह है, प्लांट है, सब कुछ है, लैंड भी मिल रहा है। प्रॉब्लम ये है कि वो मेरे को टैक्स ब्रेक नहीं देंगे, 5 साल का टैक्स ब्रेक नहीं है, बट सब कुछ सही है, लैंड मिल जाएगा, ये मिल जाएगा, सेफ है। दूसरा ऑप्शन अमित आपके पास है कि यही 100 करोड़ मैं छत्तीसगढ़ में लगा दूं, एक एरिया में, 5 साल का टैक्स ब्रेक भी है। बट एक स्लाइट प्रॉब्लम है, वहां नेक्सलिज्म बहुत ज्यादा है। कभी कभी हो सके 5 साल में एक बारी आपके फैक्ट्री में अटैक हो सकता है। Where will you put your 100 CR?
I
Client.
think the answer is quite obvious.
Very obvious. If it's so obvious to us, it's obvious to the world. But,
Brilliantly put, actually.
right? So now reverse it. Now reverse it. अब 12 साल में इंडिया में टेरर अटैक नहीं हुए हैं, खत्म ही हो गए हैं, जीरो हो गए हैं। जो भी हुए हैं वो कश्मीर में हुए हैं, एंड वो भी 100 किलोमीटर के रेडियस में। सो व्हाट हैज हैपेंड? द वर्ल्ड स्टार्टेड इन्वेस्टिंग हियर, फैक्ट्री लगा रहे हैं, ये कर रहे हैं, वो कर रहे हैं। नाउ टेक अ 25 ईयर व्यू ऑन द कंट्री। तो कैपिटल मार्केट्स में तो 25 साल का ही हम लेते हैं ना, 2 डेकेड का व्यू, दिस डेकेड, दैट डेकेड, 2 ईयर, 2 डेकेड। इमेजिन यू आर अ सेफ एंड सिक्योर नेशन एंड यू हैव 30 सेक्टर्स टू इन्वेस्ट इन। वेयर विल यू मेक मनी? इट कैन ओनली बी इन इंडिया। और कहाँ पैसे बनेंगे?
So last few days, whenever I have been talking to a lot of my clients, I have been saying next 2 to 3 years I am bullish because of what has happened as of now, the valuations and
Absolutely.
all. But what you are saying is actually taking my mind also, not just for 2 3 years. It's like 2 decades. It's
two
like, I
decades
think it's beautiful.
No, Amit, so this I think I want to leave this thought with everyone on this call. In India, our biggest advantage is we are a young nation. It allows you to think in decades. When you think in decades, and there's ample data to suggest that a 12 to 13% compounding has resulted in serious wealth creation. और कितने देश हैं इस दुनिया में जहां पे यू नो वेल्थ क्रिएशन की पॉसिबिलिटी, प्लस अगर आप सुरक्षित हो जाओ।
True.
So that's why my view has changed. I do think we are entering into a golden era for this, for the country, and perhaps even for the world.
I think I also have few questions, but
Sure.
since some of our participants, some of our, the esteemed people who are here also have
So,
questions, can I ask? Saurav has raised his hand. Saurav, can you unmute yourself and maybe put your camera on and ask the question? Then I'll come to others also. We have got Vineet, Shasidharan, Prasad, Venki asking questions. I'll come to you people also.
Yeah, hi Amit, hi Karan. Thank you for this
I,
information section. Sorry, I couldn't switch on my camera because it is disabled, but I can speak over.
That's okay.
So,
no, no
Karan,
worries.
my quick question as a small investor, retail investor, what should be your direction of investment, right? See, for example, Amit, a chunk of my portfolio is managed by Amit here and his team. I have another investments also into mutual funds and to the multiple instruments. So, what do you think that we should do? Like yesterday, I was talking to somebody in the banking section, and this guy manages the is a part of mutual fund company. He says that diversify your funds into gold, ETFs, and mutual funds and stock markets. So, if I ask you a very pointed question, suppose I have, say, for example, 10 lakh rupees. What would you do with 10 lakh rupees for a retail investor who is small and
What will
may
I
not
do?
be just balanced? Yeah, yeah. What will you do in that case?
Before Karan, you start answering the question. I'm sorry, Sora, are you back in India? I understand you were in Dubai.
Yes, yes, I came back. I got the
Good.
very last flight which flew out of the way.
Okay.
Chalo, thank God. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Thanks.
Karan, I over to you.
So first of all, if I were you, I will listen to Amit. And second, what I would, if like, and I think what what could also happen is what I would do if I was to do this on my own. And I know what my advisor would tell me is that 10 lakhs, put it in an arbitrage fund, and every month do a STP into an equity fund. So two things it will do. If if the markets really fall, then Amit can step in and say कि बॉस अपने को तो सही टाइम मिल गया है, वी आर गोइंग, वो 10 लाख जो हमने एक एक करके 1 लाख करके डाल रहे थे ओवर द नेक्स्ट 10 मंथ्स, वील इन्वेस्टेड टुडे. और मान लीजिए आपको वो अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं मिलती है at these values over the next 10 months, you are de-risking your portfolio and you are still investing. In the simplest format, this is what I would do, but I would certainly start taking exposure to equity. That's for sure. And
So,
very
Thanks.
careful equity, very careful, because abhi bhi valuations are a little high.
Saurabh, if I can add to this, you and I can anyways talk anytime, but just for the benefit of everybody else, I think the first thing that we need to do is actually look at your goals again.
Hmm.
That's, I think, the first thing that we need to do, because once we know how far, how important the goals are, then that is how the planning should go. If your goals are for near, then for that near we have to have a different game altogether, versus if we whatever we have goals in 5 years and 10 years. Having said that, I think I agree with the Karan. We were discussing before this call also. Our talk call has been SIPs, STPs for the past 3 4 years, and right now we are also saying start putting in money now. This is a very good time. When others, Warren Buffett famously said, when others are fearful, time to be greedy. So I think a little bit greedy. Maybe I'm going far a little ahead than what Karan
When
said.
there's so much fear, then it's not the time to sit out. Also, I think Amit, you made such an important point of the financial plan. Trust me, nothing is more important than that. Absolutely, most important thing is plan. मतलब plan ही होगा तभी तो you'll know what to do with the money. Like I can sit out here and say STP कर दो.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Just the plan is super critical.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I have, yeah, thank you, Saurabh. Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Yeah, can I have Vineet asking your question? Vineet, can you ask your question? Okay, let me ask a question on his behalf. His question is, any thoughts on the UK and EU FTA
Yeah.
to tide over those uncertain times?
It's a brilliant question, and people don't realize how important this FTA is.
And I'm sorry, Karan, let me also tell you, we have few defense people also in this call, and
Oops.
Vineet also happened to be one of those people. He is also a defense
I
person.
hope I haven't said anything wrong out here. But yeah, if I have, then please मुझे माफ कर दीजिएगा. So Vineet, I think you've raised a really, really important question. People don't realize how important the FTA is. वो 2026 में नहीं दिखेगा, but 2030 में ये जरूर दिखेगा. You see, what is the world doing? The world is kind of saying that we now need to have trade agreements with each other so that whatever could be the losses because of, let's say, increase in tariffs, we can offset it by trading with each other. आपको मैं बताता हूँ ये this is meaning I know this because my friend's wife was part of the EU trade delegation. For she was sitting here for 4 years, nothing was moving. And she would always say, like, we are very busy doing stuff with China and all. I would always tell her, कि तुम India के साथ, if you don't sign a trade agreement with India, then you're kind of missing the bus. As soon as the tariffs came, on absolute priority, India became important. EU वाला साइन हो गया, ratification के लिए गया है. कभी मतलब 10 साल लग गए. It's gone and happened in less than 6 months. The one in UK has been done. The one with Australia done. The one with the Middle East done. Which basically means that the Indian manufacturers and the Indian consumers now have global access. And so you get an opportunity to diversify your portfolio. Exactly how it is in investments. पहले आप केवल एक ही डायरेक्शन में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे थे. नाउ यू आर मल्टी डायरेक्शन. इट्स लाइक हैविंग अ मल्टी एसेट फंड. So to answer your question in short, Manish, I think it's one of the biggest stories. People have underplayed it. This will open up opportunities, and ये आज नहीं दिखेगा, 2030 onwards दिखेगा, 3 से 4 साल के बाद.
Thank you, Karan, for answering, and thanks, Amit, for asking on my behalf. Unfortunately, slightly technically challenged, so I couldn't unmute myself. But if I may
That's okay.
take a minute, once again, thanks to Amit for organizing this wonderful lecture series. And Karan, as Amit mentioned, I am from defense, but your observations have been spot on. In
Yes.
addition, I feel that every adversity brings in a lot of opportunity. Those who
Yes,
are
sir.
able to grab it
Yes, sir.
will come out on top. So I think this is the time to stay invested in the market and everything else. But the geopolitics is changing so fast that one doesn't know as to whether the oil shocks or the grain shocks will derail the next market chain. So that is where I think your input about staying with an investment partner is extremely important. But thanks to both of you for a wonderful insights into this great series. Thank you.
Most welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Vineet. Can we have Venki asking his question?
Yeah, sure. Uh, I have two questions. I think the first question is to Karan. Uh, you see, you started off uh, with your opening remarks that if the country is doing well and if its economy parameters are good, that is the first indicator that all will go well. Now, unfortunately, in this current West Asia war, while India is good on its economy, I think as a country we are together. Our defense systems are fantastic. But in the current, West Asia war, India has become a collateral,
Absolutely.
and we are seeing all the problems that will occur in a country when there is a war. So I wanted what's your take on that? That's my first question. The second question, maybe Amit, you may like to take this. You see, currently we are in a war phase, and hopefully we'll move to a post-war period soon. Now, considering a lot of damages have happened on the manufacturing of crude oil, LPG across all major suppliers, it will take a little bit of time for all of that to start working back efficiently and meeting the demand. So, in this scenario, Amit, what is your view on the market? What will happen to the market? Because it's not like there was COVID got over, suddenly markets bounced back. So that the impact of the war and the destruction is going to continue for some time. So I wanted, Amit, what is your view on the market and how will it move forward?
Yeah. Thanks, Venki. Karan?
Uh, well, two things out here. I did mention what I mentioned right at the start was that economies and capital markets are a subject of how secure and safe a nation is. So it starts with the fact that you have to be a safe and secure nation. Then everything falls in place. That's the point I was making. In this particular era of war, clearly we're not immune. We have a 70% dependence on energy. All of our oil and LPG comes through, or not oil, a lot of it comes through parts of the Middle East. But remember that this particular decision to diversify our oil had happened 3 years ago or 2 years ago when we started buying from Russia. Now, it's because of the Russia-Ukraine war that the Americans wanted us to buy less Russian oil and more, American oil, perhaps, or let's say Middle Eastern oil, that we shifted a bit. But we had already, we were 2% of Russian oil, it became 60% became Russian oil. To get the oil from the Middle East is 6 days. To get Russian oil is 12 days. Double time लगता है. मगर ऐसा नहीं है कि Russian oil is not available. So अभी भी we have the pain. The pain से that's the point I was making. That if you want to go and look on the other side of a very peaceful world and a nice blue sky, you have to go through this pain. Part of the pain is economics. Thankfully, we have also a supplier who's been supplying to us at very reasonable costs. That we go back to that structure. The issue is actually not oil, the issue is gas. And in that, what happens is we have two uses of gas. One is purely for cooking. 90% of our gas production of LPG is for households. And the other is CNG, which is used for cars and for industrial purposes. The one that is still under control is LPG. What will happen is this gas for usage on industrial, there can be a shortage out there. Their escalation of price could be out there, and that can lead to some bit of inflation, and thereby that can mean a hit on the economy. Absolutely possible. But oil may still be under control, which is why the government has still at least not increased the oil prices, even though their own production, their own costs must have gone up by now. So I'm demarcating between the two. The oil, probably we have options, like I said, go back to the Russian oil, and that doesn't come through this route. That comes through the Black Sea, and that's why it takes 12 days to come. Gas will be an issue because the whole world is vying for the same gas. Europe depends on gas. And guess what? The supplier of gas to Europe was never Qatar in the first place, or it was not a big supplier. It was always Russia. All of Russian gas was being supplied to Europe through Poland and through Ukraine. So Europeans were buying Russian gas through Ukraine pipelines and funding the war. And so that model has stopped. Hence, they had to come to Qatar. And I think that's where the cost could go up, because people would not want to go back buying gas from Russia, because then that means, you're funding the Russian war all over again. And the cost of European gas has already gone up by about 30%. And gas in Europe is very important because as winters come, then, electrification, production, manufacturing, two things have made Europe very big. One is cheap Russian gas and cheap Chinese labor. That was the European model, and that has both of that has come under attack. I mean, that's come under revision. In India, thankfully, we have this ability to go back. I'm more worried about our ability to control gas prices like LPG and CNG. That could be under stress.
Yeah, thank you, Karan. And the question that Venki put to me, I would say, uh, and I think that's something which is going to be useful for everybody to listen to, because I've been talking about this otherwise also. Part one would be that, needless to say, there is a disruption, as Karan also said, LPG, LNG, and that's, I think, a major, bigger problem than anything else. And also, it is quite imperative that a lot of manufacturing units in India are going to suffer because of that. Not just in India, that's something, that's a phenomena which is a right now a worldwide phenomena. So India is also going to face the same problem. And I understand from the first-hand account, because I deal with a lot of industrialists also, that industries also had to close down. Those industries which are based on whose basic requirement is LPG gas, they had to close down, and it's not easy for an industry to restart. It takes a little bit, few weeks to actually restart again. So the problem is there, no here and there. That's actually the scenario. But the important point here, as someone who's been, helping people in financial matters, is what I answered for the starting point would be for Saurabh also, that we have to understand our money is for what goal and where it is. And also important, and this is something which is a lot of people are not talking about this, what percentage of our net worth is actually in equities. A lot of times that percentage is little. Maybe I have got 100 rupees of wealth in totality. My money in equities is, let's say, 5 rupees. And for 5 rupees, I am like, 5 rupees have become 4.5. Thankfully, it has not gone too less also, but that also becomes troublesome sometimes. So I want everybody to understand वो 100 रुपीज में उसका कितना इम्पैक्ट आ रहा है, उसको समझें, and then realign the goals, realign where we are today, and what what surplus we have today. Is our emergency account, emergency fund in place, which will take care of my regular expenses if the scenario goes bad? Is my immediate goals are going to be met? I think That is how our thinking has to go. We cannot be in a situation where we say that in next 3 months markets will react in a way or two. It may, we don't know. Markets don't react how we want to. Today markets, Trump, I would say, reacts like markets have been in that zone all the time. Now we don't know when Trump is going to say. He says one thing at one point of time, another 15 minutes he say absolutely the other way around. So scenarios are dynamic. But in fact, last week we came out with a research report, which I mentioned in the start, where we actually, there are 3 points that we mentioned there. I just want to reiterate that for everybody. One point is that we are in a scenario where whenever such conflicts have happened, whenever such things have happened, because a lot of reconstruction has to happen all the way. So next 1 year, 2 years after such conflicts have actually markets have really gone up very nicely. I'm not predicting it will happen the same this time also, but this is how it has happened. Second thing that we shared in that research report is that whenever has been a stagflation of 18 months, which we have seen for the last more than 18 months now, next 1 year, 3 years, 2 years, and 3 years, markets have exploded like anything because the earnings have gone up. In fact, 2 years back, as Karan also said, because I was discussing with the same, we were not that bullish about equity. So when whatever money we were asking our clients to invest into equity was only through STPs. No money in our case was going lump sum. So we have been very, very particular about the valuations of the market in that also. So the point is we have to look at our goals. Sometimes there's a problem is small, we kind of look bigger in that. Anything more, I am open to discussing one to one also. Thank you so much, Venki. Can we move to Rahul?
Yeah.
थैंक यू सो मच अमित, थैंक यू अमित भाई, आपके सेशंस बहुत इंसाइटफुल होते हैं. सो आई अप्रिशिएट कि आप जब भी करते हैं, मैं कोशिश करता हूँ कि इन सेशंस को ज़रूर अटेंड करूँ.
थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दैट.
या एंड थैंक यू सो मच करण, आपको मैं डेफिनेट लिंक्डइन पे फॉलो करता हूँ. सो आई एम ए रेगुलर रीडर ऑफ योर पोस्ट्स. कई बार हो सकता है कि मैं आपको उस पर कुछ एंगेज ना कर पाऊँ, बट आई एम डेफिनेटली रीडर ऑफ इट. आपने टुवर्ड्स द कॉन्वर्सेशन एंड में एक बात कही थी कि वी आर हेडिंग टुवर्ड्स मोर स्टेबल एज ए प्लैनेट एंड मोर स्टेबल पीसफुल. ठीक है, वर्ल्ड ज्यादा पीसफुल होगा. हाउएवर आई हैव थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस ऑफ ओपिनियन. लोग बोल रहे हैं वर्ल्ड वॉर 3 होगा नहीं होगा मुझे नहीं पता, बट आई पर्सनली फील देयर वुड बी लॉट ऑफ स्मॉल बैटल्स हैपनिंग अराउंड. जैसे चाइना हैज ए मैंडेट कि उनका डॉक्ट्रिन बोलता है 2027 तक दे हैव टू टेक ऑन ताइवान, राइट? सो दैट बिकम्स अनदर फ्लैश पॉइंट. So there are multiple flashpoints which are happening which are bound to happen. Maybe something on the India and the POK wala side, right? So these things are bound to happen within the next 5, 7, 10 years. So first question is, what are your thoughts around it? Second, अगर ऐसा होगा इस प्रीमाइस के बेस पे, तो क्या गोल्ड और सिल्वर में इन्वेस्ट करना इस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से ज्यादा बेटर है रेदर देन इन्वेस्टिंग इन इक्विटीज? व्हाट्स योर थॉट अराउंड इट? क्योंकि हमें गोल्ड को उस पर्सपेक्टिव से भी देखना है, इन्फ्लेशन को आपको हेज करता है, प्लस यूएस डॉलर्स में अगर हम टर्म्स में भी देखें तो देयर आर मल्टीपल फैक्टर्स कि हम 3% यूएस डॉलर्स के बेस पे भी हर साल लूज कर रहे हैं एज एन इन्वेस्टर्स. सो इन दो सवालों पे आपका क्या थॉट प्रोसेस है?
Lots of questions in that. I'll start with World War III. मतलब जब भी मेरे को people ask me about conflict, and my favorite answer is you're already in the middle of it. Please don't think that World War III is not going on. ये हो क्या रहा है, ये और क्या हो रहा है, सभी तो खेल रहे हैं. China is providing all the ammunition and most sophisticated missiles to Iran. The Russians are providing technology. The Chinese are providing satellite imagery. How do you think they're getting to hit very specifically certain parts? So, for everyone on this call, let me remove the notion that you're not in World War III. You're already into it. In fact, you're getting out of it now. And then there are so many other formats of war. You don't have to be like shooting bullets for that. Like I said, water war, cyber, narrative. So हम तो उसके अंदर हैं. The reason why I'm positive is because ये चलता आ रहा है, but इसको अब बंद करने का टाइम भी आ रहा है. Which is what we are starting to see. ये पहले कभी नहीं हुआ था. This is brand new. that people are now saying that they don't want to tolerate this nonsense going ahead. And they're calling it out. Not just calling it out, they're attacking it. So when you say, like, the China Taiwan thing, the last time the Chinese fought a war was in 71 against Vietnam. They lost that war. After that they've only done this. गलवान में इंडिया के साथ कर लिया, वो भी 110 सोल्जर्स मरे थे उस टाइम. And there is this the Indian Army undertook for people on this call who are from the forces, the Indian Army occupied higher heights through their tanks, and the Chinese had to actually start negotiations. So it's not as if that structure is now all primed for war. They fight proxy war. The era of proxy war is over. Whether they'll take Taiwan or not, they are building it up to say that they want to take Taiwan. But what has happened now? First, they need to get oil for that, no? पहले तो उनका ऑयल 90% ऑयल यूज टू कम फ्रॉम वेनेजुएला एंड ईरान, दोनों ही शट हो गया. दे नॉट इवन रशियन ऑयल बायर्स. So they have their own issues to deal with the slowing growth rate. Their population is aging. They have other issues to deal with. The world has issues to deal with, which is why I'm just making the point again that a lot of what you're saying is already playing out. That drishya abhi chal raha hai. So that's what makes me more positive. When I look at 2030, I see that ये सब हो चुका होगा by that time. And that scenario will actually stabilize. And countries will become, what will happen is globalization has come to an end. Localization is the new story. पहले होता था the world is flat. The world is now back to being round. What is America saying? Make America great again. What is India saying? Make in India. What are the Japanese saying? Bring back all production from China. I will give you $2 trillion to start making in Japan. What is India saying for rare earth? What is India saying for semiconductors? 35,000 crores का project लगा दिया. So what will happen? What is happening is सब बोल रहे हैं self reliance. We want to be self reliant. That is the big story. Globalization से लोग पहले होता था act local, be local, act global. अब उल्टा हो गया. That's the big theme from an investment point of view also. The question as far as this whole world of I mean, as a byproduct of that, what I'm beginning to realize is that nations will play big roles. And who will play a big role? Probably India. इतना बड़ा देश ही कहाँ है चाइना और इंडिया को छोड़ के. So अपना रोल भी important हो जाएगा. And it's not because we want to give self importance to us. It's just that at some stage, a young 25-year-old average age nation with 140 crore people, if they start to move in one direction of being productive, it'll create magic. What if the actual 2047 objective comes true and we become a middle income nation by that time with a per capita income of 15,000, maybe $18,000? मतलब अपनी तो दुनिया ही उल्टी हो जाएगी.
Karan, if I may just interject and kind of put in a question to just kind of expand it in such a manner. My question is where India sits right now, geographically and geopolitically. Both
Yeah,
ways, India actually sits between US, China, and the Middle East, right? We are kind of both ways we are in that. And my question is, do you see it as a beneficiary, as a bystander, or caught someone in the crossfire? Where do you think
no, none
India
of them.
is?
None of them. Not a bystander, not someone sitting on the sidelines, certainly not in the crossfire. I see it playing a big, huge role as a player. उस इंडिया ने भी अपनी हैट फेंक दी रिंग के अंदर. प्लेयर है. So let me explain this. It's a great question. So we have to go back in history a little bit. When we became a nation, the planners and the political diaspora at that time very wisely decided that we will be a non-aligned country. Non-alignment. So what is non-alignment? Non-alignment का मतलब हुआ हमारा कोई दोस्त नहीं है. दैट इज वॉट नॉन अलाइनमेंट इज. तो ना हम रशिया के साइड के दोस्त हैं, ना हम अमेरिकन, मतलब बेसिकली हमारा कोई दोस्त नहीं है. बट नाउ व्हाट इज हैपेंड इज वी हैव चोजन अ पाथ कॉल्ड स्ट्रेटेजिक अलाइनमेंट. So we've moved away and called ourselves strategic alignment. What is strategic alignment? मतलब we will now make everyone a friend who has India's interest. So I think this is where the shift is, that we're asking for India's, where does India's interest lie? And so the shift is towards, can you imagine that you are friends and enemies with China at the same time? And like I said, you're speaking to the Iranians and to the Israelis at the same time. You're speaking to the Russians and to the Americans simultaneously. What that means is, as strategic alignment, your only concern is where does India's interest align, and that makes it a very serious player and a powerful nation to become an opinion leader over time. ये अभी की अब नहीं होगा, ये अभी नहीं दिखेगा, इसमें थोड़ा टाइम जाएगा. But people will start realizing this in 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. So we are a serious player in all of this. Again, I don't want to make this sound political because it sounds as if there's a bias in my opinion. But this is the fact. There is nothing. Well, the next big economy in the world has to be India, because where else will the growth come from? Yeah,
I think it's not like that. Everybody has to have an opinion, and that
absolutely.
opinion will actually anytime an opinion can make some people happy and some people not
Yeah,
so happy. But the point is, you cannot run away from the reality. We are all seeing the fruits of how things are happening.
yeah.
Some good and some bad. Nothing comes in itself.
So Amit,
Uh,
on just one bit on the markets, and there's these questions that have come. I just want to make one very important point, because people tend to look at their portfolios on that day.
hmm.
You suddenly realize, oh, मेरा portfolio down है. But go back to 2024, and Amit, you rewind yourself to 2024. आपके पास इनफ नंबर ऑफ फोन कॉल आए होंगे कि मेरे को स्मॉल कैप के फंड में डालना है. तो आपने क्या किया उस वक्त?
As I told you, we have not even been doing a lump sum entry into equities. We have been very clear that we would prefer a smart STP, not just an STP, a smart
Right.
STP is what our alignment was.
Right. And yet investors must have gone and invested.
Yeah,
Okay.
his,
Let's come to 2025. You must have got hundreds of calls. Okay, let's invest in a gold fund. Let's invest in a silver fund. What did you do at that time?
yeah, we actually, it's a very precarious thing as of now for gold and silver, because sometimes opinions are, very, very in that zone that it's like that. So we had to balance things in between. My call is that it's more about value. If I see value in something,
Yeah.
I would like to go about that. So in fact, there was a question from Rahul also about gold, and you also asked the same thing. And I think a lot of
The-
people want to really ask about
yeah.
gold.
Yeah. There's a reason why I asked specifically that time frame, because both the questions were at the peak of, so small caps
It's
were at the peak. 2025, everyone was investing in gold. So imagine, Amit, you said 2024 में small cap मत करो, and 2025 में अगर gold करना भी है तो उसको asset allocation के through से करो. This is what you would have said. But sometimes
exactly.
the investors would have done exactly the opposite. And that's the point I'm trying to make out here to everyone on the call. Today, markets look as if there's complete destruction, and only serious wealth is created in destruction, because तब अमित जैसे इन्वेस्टर्स को और प्लानर्स को अच्छी वैल्यू दिखती है. क्योंकि अगर अपने को वैल्यू नहीं दिखेगी तो फ्यूचर रिटर्न्स तो आपने वैसे ही बना लिए. But the same stock is available at 40% discount. When you invest today is where you actually then start making money. So for the first time, and I must admit this, for the first time in 5 years, I'm actually turning slightly bullish on the markets. I've not been bullish, I've not been a bear either, but I always wondered कि ईटी का पहले 6 पेज खोलो तो सिर्फ आईपीओ है. ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता. And when everyone is super bearish is when you really make money. ये confirmed है.
Just one line to add to that. I think you only get reasonable prices when there is harakari all around you. If the news on the TV is good, you will not find saste
Cannot
mein.
make, yeah,
You will not
you cannot
find
make
saste
serious
mein, and
money.
if you can't buy things in sasta, you will not make money. If you are only going to buy things in which when they are costly, it's going to be like that. When the sky is clear, everybody is on the road. The road will automatically become choked. You have to
अभी तो
actually
स्काई
start.
एकदम अनक्लियर है, अभी तो स्काई ग्रे भी नहीं है, ब्लैक है। तो वो
True,
ब्लैक में जो आप खरीदोगे ना, and if you're careful about it, that's the story for for the next 5 to 6 years. You got to be careful.
true.
There's opportunity to make money out here.
True. In fact, that's the reason why we say it, this. How you invest is not something which we can only give you our view in such kind of a webinar. The right way is that we sit down one on one and we
Yeah.
understand your asset allocation, your goals, and that's how we would really want to go about. That's a long cut for us to sit down with each of you, to talk with each of you, and to help you do your planning in the right manner. Versus, this is actually a simpler thing. One for all is otherwise a simpler thing. I would not. That's not the way you should go around. It is imperative that we kind of work with each client because each client's goals, their risk profile, their requirements, their time horizon is so different that you cannot have one size fits all for investment as such. Yeah, I think that's how it is. And there is one question from Mr. Prasad. I'll just take that question.
Sure.
Can the perpetrators be taken to ICJ, and who can do that? And what may be the punishment, if at all, to these bad guys? Any
I think we
beyond our
tried that.
scope?
We tried that. Like as a nation, we've tried to go back to the United Nations. We've obviously tried that model after 26/11. There was just so much exchange of proof, genuine proof. We tried to get the perpetrators behind jail. They were in jail for a while. Israel tried to do that. The Americans tried. I mean, but the fact of the matter is that it doesn't work, unfortunately. In fact, ulta ho gaya. Kulbhushan Yadav, who's an Indian, we had to use the ICJ so that he doesn't get executed. He was picked up from Chabahar port and he's now in Pakistan's jail. So we had to use the ICJ the other way around to protect one of our assets. And I think the time for that is over. That's the point I was trying to make to everyone, that the state has decided that this is an act of war. It's a very big shift, monumental shift. No more
करण कहते हैं ना,
justice.
अपनी लड़ाई खुद लड़नी पड़ेगी.
अब आपको खुद लड़नी पड़ेगी. No one will come to fight your war. When India gets into Operation Sindhu 2.0, which it will at some stage, remember this, that we will fight our own battle. When Operation Sindhu started, and I predicted it 15 days just after Pahalgam, it was very obvious. ये होगा ही होगा. And then everyone went berserk when it started, and it was again very clear that this cannot last for too long. Someone will step in, shut it, because अपने objectives meet हो गए थे. I'm saying the same thing again, that there is a war going on. There is immense amount of pain going on. This is a pain we have to live through because this is 50 years of accumulation of pain. Once you go through it, and you will suffer economically through it, maybe for the next 3 to 6 months, but the other side looks extremely vibrant and peaceful.
Thank you so much, Karan. Genuinely, thanks a lot for your insights. Actually, this is the kind of perspective that is actually rare. Someone who understands both geopolitical reality and what it actually means for the real world investing. So, thank you so much for from your very very busy schedule,
No,
taking out time
Anything for you.
for us. Yeah, thank you so much, and I'm going to trouble you more in the times to come. We are actually grateful for your time on a Sunday morning, and I'm also grateful for each of the participant here for being here, for being present, taking their time out. And on a Sunday, there are so many other things to do, but you decided to be here. Thank you so very much. And what I hope you take away from today is not a prediction, actually, and not anxiety, absolutely not anxiety. What I hope you take away is a framework, a way of reading the world that helps you make better decisions as a world. I'll just repeat what I just said. I want you to take away is a framework, a way of reading the world that helps you make better decisions as an investor. That's what
In a
I wanted
complicated world.
that's why I repeat it. And thank you everyone for being here again. And have a wonderful Sunday to each one of
Thank
you.
you so
Thank
much.
you so
Best
much.
of
We'll
luck.
close this today. Yeah,
Bye.
thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kanal Sanjay. Thank you.